So if you had the chance to sort of bring back from the dead any scientist or thinker in the past and sit down and have a few beers and a conversation with them, what would you talk about?
Well, I feel like you kind of have. I guess the obvious answer is Darwin, of course. I feel though, having heard about having beers with people, I think John Maynard Smith would be perhaps my choice. It's been said that the most important thing for a conference is not the program or the out of conference excursions. Is that that Maynard Smith can attend and there's a big spacious bar. And then the rest kind of will take care of it itself. And I think what I would like to talk to him about in particular is the role of formal theory, mathematical theory in evolutionary biology. He was an engineer by training, and his maths is enough to scare a biologist, but not enough to impress a mathematician. We have some people who are very skilled mathematics and can do very sophisticated models. But I think that there is a kind of a tendency that there's diminishing returns to that. And kind of like some of the kind of rather intuitive models relying a lot on approximations, simulations that he represented, that school of approach to mathematical modeling. I think it would be interesting to hear his take on where kind of theoretical population genetics and other more formal parts of our field are today compared to when he was kind of coming up 30, 40, 50 years ago.
Mm-hmm. What things that are going on now do you think would most excite him?
I mean, he towards the very end of his career, he did some of really early work on sequencing data. He probably would be quite excited by that. So I think that, of course, that a lot of things that were purely theoretical debates only a couple of decades ago about the importance of selection at the genome level, linkage recombination, all these kind of processes that were almost purely the subject of modeling, now you can settle those arguments. And I think that's also why we don't see those really rambunctious debates in population genetics today as we used to do kind of half a century ago. It's simply because the data is there. You can go out and check. And debates tend to mature with that the worst, I think, kind of debates tend to happen in parts of the field that are theory rich but data poor. I would, of course, also like to hear his take on the most recent reiteration of the controversy over inclusive fitness that's been taking place in the last 10 years. I mean, he had a somewhat contentious relationship with Hamilton, of course, on a personal level, but also was kind of a kind of friendly critic of the concept. And I do talk about it a little bit in the book, that sometimes you hear these kind of echoes of the critique that he came up with about that inclusive fitness is a messy, complicated concept that's it's easy to get wrong. And often you're better off just doing models of classic population genetics, asking about if you have an allele with these kind of properties, what will happen to it in this population. So how he would view this, which again also feeds into this like role of mathematical population modeling, that the kind of recent criticism came from people who are mathematicians by training, Martin Novak, Korean Tarnita, and so on, and which is, I think, has a lot to offer. But so those are perhaps the kind of topics I would like to. And in general, I mean, he's as a scientist, as a writer, essayist, it seems to be a tremendously fun guy to be around.
Yeah, I'd love to be there listening to you guys chat for sure.
One other warm-up question, and I'll give you, this is a bifurcating question, so you can answer either of two parts. And this is going to be non-scientific. So what's the most beautiful place you've ever been? Or if you're a cook, what's your favorite meal that you make?
Probably the most beautiful place. Iceland, it was quite. I've been to Iceland, kind of hiking in Iceland, some multi-day hike in Iceland. That was spectacular, mostly because it looked like nothing else. The kind of the colors in the landscape that, I've spent a lot of time in mountains, but they kind of you get used to the palette. But here, things were red, they were orange, they were blue in a kind of completely different kind of colorscape. So that I was very taken by that. In terms of cooking, probably like game and wild berries.
Nice.
Probably. My family's from northern parts of Sweden, so we eat a lot of moose and reindeer. And so.
Are there particular Swedish recipes that you would use for moose or reindeer.
Yeah, so I mean, you can kind of make like both of them. You can make nicely like stews with potatoes and lingonberries. It's pretty typical kind of northern Swedish dish. So probably something.
Sounds
like that.
great. That sounds great. I've only ever spent a few hours in Iceland in Reykjavik in the airport, and really regretted not being able to get out to the landscape. I have to go back at some point and get out and see it all.
It's a spectacular place. Yeah.
A live event in Reykjavik, Art. That's my suggestion.
Yeah, okay. Let's do that.
Sold.